So what are we going? So till the last session, what we have done, we have understood like what are the components of the identity warehouse, accounts, entitlements, security system endpoints, and stuff like that. Then we have as well seen kind of steps of user imports, steps of application imports, role imports, examples for all of them. Okay. So that usually that kind of covers your data import or building up your identity repository within Saviynt. All right. So major things what are required for any application or for any activity such as for any governance or identity management activity are users, accounts, entitlements, and provisioning part. Okay. So we have seen the first part, which is building the identity repository. Now we will see the later part, which is very important, which falls under the identity management activity. Okay, so from now onwards, we will cover completely about access request system. Okay, what lies within access request system and what are the configurations associated with that. Okay, so usually, right? Let me go to the screen directly. Okay, so here. Okay. So initially, this screen was not kind of enabled with the options. So what I have done, and I have checked certain options which are required for an administrator or even for a manager to view. Okay. So whatever you're seeing on the screen right now are called as tiles. Okay. So each tile has a functionality within Saviynt. Okay. And they perform certain activities related to the entire access request system. Okay, so first of all, like what is access request system? What goes inside this, and kind of configurations behind it, and all. All right. So access request system is nothing but a place or a module within Saviynt from where somebody can request for an access, or somebody can request. Okay, let me put it like this, right? Somebody can request for a access to be granted, and somebody can request for a access to be deprovisioned as well. Okay, so and there are many other things which a end user can do, or even a manager or an approver can do. All right, so this module called as access request system can be uh, different for each user who is accessing the system. Okay, or the options I should refer it to as. So, if I'm an end user, right, I need not to I need not to bother about request history or request approval or um, say such as pending tasks or creating a new role or other tiles, right? So if I'm an end user, my view will be different here. Okay, I may not be seeing all the options, but I would be seeing only fewer options here, which are required for any end user to submit a request. Okay, so that's one example. If you are a manager, you would see different number of tiles on your screen more than what an end user would see, because definitely you need to have the access to approve a particular request. Okay, so that's one type of uh, layout of the access request system. Okay, if you're an administrator, right, you will have the complete access to do anything in the system. Okay, you can approve somebody's request, you can reject somebody's request, or you can submit a request on behalf of somebody, or there are a number of things which you can do as an administrator. Okay, so this access request system, the functionality remains same for any type of a user, whether you're a manager, whether you're an administrator, or whether you're an end user as well. So sorry, so that remains same, the functionality remains same for anybody. Okay, meaning the way you request for an access remains the same, or the place from where you request for an access remains the same, the place from where you can submit an access for removal of removal of certain entitlement, that remains the same, and everything. The only difference from, let's call it as a persona, right? So the only difference from one user type to another user type would be the number of options which are getting displayed on the screen. Okay, or number of functionalities which are displayed on the screen. All right, but the ground level functionality would still remain the same for any user. Okay, So that's a very quick highlight about access request system. All right. So any activity which you want to perform within Saviynt, which is related to an access, right? So that entire thing is driven from here. Okay. So tomorrow, your company asks or your client asks you to onboard an application, or say not onboard an application, but build something around a application which you have already onboarded in the previous session and enable the access request system for that particular application. Okay, say for example we have a connected application called a Salesforce. Okay, so your client will come to you and say that, okay, let's build a access request form around it, okay, around Salesforce, and let users access that particular or let users submit requests for Salesforce through Saviynt. Okay, so that would be one of your kind of use cases. All right. So when something like this comes to you, okay, when something like this comes to you, what is the first and foremost thing which you have to kind of sit down and discuss with the customer are following points for you. Okay, so let's write them down so that we kind of remember. All right. So I'm not going to kind of okay, let me put it under overview. Okay. All right. So as I said, it's the central place from where anybody can submit a request for provisioning or reprovisioning of an access. Okay. In the later versions
So
or
say
in the upcoming version, yeah.
question here. So in order to
Hmm.
enable that tiles, like all the tiles that are part of the access request, right? So you told
Yes,
that you did some changes. So
I'll
what
talk.
are those changes?
I'll talk about it. Just a second, right? Let me talk. I'll talk about it definitely. Yeah. So yeah, sure. So it's a central repository from where you can submit a request for an access, or you can also submit a request for deprovisioning an access. Okay. In the later versions of Saviynt, it's not yet kind of fully enabled in the current version, which we are kind of working on. But in the later versions, I believe this is Service Pack 1 of 5.5. But if you have a different service pack, probably like 5. Sorry, SP2 or SP3, Saviynt started rolling out a particular feature, where extra features along with the access request called as enabling an account, okay, plus disabling accounts as well. So initially, the first few options what Saviynt kind of exposes to anybody are add, okay, modify, and remove. Okay, so these are the operations which any end user or any user can do when he lands on request, when he lands on a particular endpoint through access request. Okay, we'll check that particular place as well from where they kind of get exposed. Okay, along
When
with
you
these
say when
three
so when you say any user, right? So what do you mean by any user? Like he should be part of the ID repository, right?
That is correct. So I'm a user who's onboarded onto Saviynt or who has been imported into Saviynt through some import process. Okay. So, and for example, let's say we have enabled SSO. Okay. Or we do not have SSO as well. Let's consider we do not have an SSO. So any user who gets onboarded into Saviynt will be having a default password with him. Okay. But in production, any organization will definitely have an SSO enabled with them. So we also set up the SSO within Saviynt. Okay. So then when user directly clicks on say something called as www.google.saviynt.com, for example, so he will directly log in into Saviynt and come to a particular home screen option, say whether it is ARS or whether it is any analytics or something. He'll land on a particular page. Okay, so that's a first step. So the user must and should be present within Saviynt for submitting a request. Okay, there may be examples, right? You can also question me that, like, why is it necessary for me to be onboarded onto Saviynt 100%? Okay, there may be chances that your application doesn't want users to log into Saviynt. Okay, they have their own application. Say, for example, ServiceNow. Okay, your organization already uses ServiceNow, from wherein people are requesting for applications. Okay, there may be a scenario wherein your organization still wants to use ServiceNow for doing provisioning and deprovisioning, but that has to be routed through Saviynt. Okay, that could be another ask for your organization. That's a very rare case, but there are some projects which we have worked on wherein the client still wants to use his system, but everything has to happen through Saviynt. Okay, in those cases, the user may not log in into Saviynt, but a call will come to Saviynt. That call will be processed in Saviynt, and again there'll be a response sent back to the source. Okay, so in that case, the APIs come into picture. Okay, so Saviynt supports like a number of APIs, which I don't know. I mean, like, it's although it's not part of this thing which we are kind of discussing, but there may be chances wherein, as you have asked a question that, like, should the user log in, or where the user is present. So I'm just kind of supporting that particular point. So I'll be still on ServiceNow. I'll request for a Salesforce application on ServiceNow. The call comes to Saviynt, API call, a REST call or a SOAP call. Okay, it comes to Saviynt. Saviynt processes that particular call, creates a request, approves that request, etc., and all. And the response of that call will be sent back to the source application, like for example, ServiceNow. Okay, so in this scenario, as an end user, I'm nowhere coming to Saviynt. I don't have any need to come to Saviynt. But as a Saviynt developer, you need to do all these things in the background, wherein through your code, whether it is a Java or a .NET code, you call a Saviynt API. That API performs certain activity, creates a request, approves a request, create a task, and sends back the response to your source. Okay, so there are two things: a user kind of must and should log into Saviynt and then submit a request. If not, if you're driving your entire setup through APIs, need not to log into Saviynt as well. You just use your source application, everything happens in the background. Okay, so that's a answer for your question, Sudhir.
Okay.
Yep. So as I kind of talked about, the very initial thing which we are looking at, say, kind of ARS module is add, modify, remove operations for any application within Saviynt. Okay. Of late, Saviynt has also kind of enabled the options wherein you can enable your account or you can disable your account as well. Okay. Say why am I kind of stressing on this point is that many applications, right? Say, for example, again, right? Tomorrow you're onboarding Salesforce onto Saviynt at your organization. The customer will say that, see, okay, usually what happens is that I had an account for the first time. I imported that account. It came into Saviynt. The accounts get or the user gets terminated. Okay, the account. So something has to happen on the account in Saviynt, correct? Meaning the account will either get deprovisioned or it will be disabled or it will be deleted as well. Anything can happen according to the application's requirement. Okay, so consider the case wherein the account is disabled. Okay, the account is disabled. I'm talking about the account status changing from active to inactive in Saviynt, and whatever may be the target status, which Saviynt will push it to the target when an account is disabled. Okay, so when the account is disabled and tomorrow there is a rehire scenario for the user. Okay, the user comes back to Saviynt. All right, so when the user comes back to Saviynt, your application team will say that uh, right now, or when the user comes back, say Shrikant is coming back as a user again, or Sudhir is coming back as a user again. I still want to retain the same account name for that particular user. I don't want to create a new account name on the target application. Okay, so in that scenario, either you can ask the user to use this options of enabling or disabling the accounts manually, or you may have a rule in place which will enable your account on the target whenever a user is onboarded. Okay, I'll not talk about rules right now. We'll check that once we are kind of into the rule engineering. But this is one such kind of use case wherein these options will be helpful for you. Okay. So what you're going to do, you'll come to Saviynt, just click on the button called as enable account next to your application. That will create a request. It will create a task in the background after approval, and that will go to your respective target application upon provisioning. So it will enable the account on target with the same name. Okay. So that's the kind of story behind these two new actions Saviynt allowing next to every application apart from the standard three operations. Okay, so that's a story behind it. All right. So we have these five options in Saviynt against any endpoint for you to perform an operation. Okay, whether it is add, modify, remove, or enabling or disabling account as well. Okay, so if we quickly check the flow, okay, let's try to check the flow when we are enabling an access request system for any application. Okay, first you will build your repository. Okay, okay, which includes security system, endpoint, okay, connection, okay, uh, account input, access input, etc. Okay, this etc. as well includes user to account correlation. Okay, account to access mapping. Okay, and what else is there? I think that's all, right? So first you build your identity repository. Okay, so what we are kind of discussing right now is like what are the bare minimum steps which are required for you to enable access request system for any application within Saviynt. Okay, and this remains same for both connected and disconnected applications. So there is no differentiation across it. All right. So the difference between a connected and disconnected application comes into the picture when you are building the identity repository around it. So we discussed, right, for a connected application there will be a connection established in Saviynt. For disconnected application, you will not have a connection behind it. You are going to import the data manually for a disconnected application. Okay, so that's a prime kind of difference between both the types of applications. Okay, but the access request system, if you are enabling it for both connected and disconnected applications, still remains the same. Okay, there's no big difference there. Okay, so first you build your repository. Okay, then you are going to ask what, or let's say how the user request form will look like. Okay, this is going to be your second step. All right, so we'll discuss that. Okay, we'll take an example and look at that. But a user form is nothing but, I'm not sure if you have kind of a little bit of OIM background or any application, any IAM platform, but it's nothing but the place wherein somebody would come and submit or select a access and submit the request. Okay, basically it's a form. Say like I'm filling up a Google sheet. Okay, so the Google sheet will have a number of fields inside it, right? First name, last name, access type, email, phone, contact, etc. and all. So a Saviynt form or a user form is nothing but a Google sheet wherein somebody would feed in the data, request for a particular entitlement, and submit that particular form. Okay. So first and foremost, the important thing is you need to analyze or check how your current as is form is. Okay. Say if your form on
Okay.
the
Question here. Sorry to interrupt you here.
yeah.
Can I also build a form within this access request system to basically onboard an user?
We can do that. Yeah.
Say, for example, I have a very edge case where suddenly that user was missed out of as part of an import or some automated process, but later somebody HR or somebody sends me out that okay, this account you need to quickly add it. So instead of doing a connector or disconnected way or connected way, can I quickly ask the HR to fill in this form so that I can go and create this, or I can make a form available to the user or a HR where
Absolutely.
they can quickly fill.
Absolutely. That can be done within Saviynt.
And we can create a new user over there.
Correct. Correct. We can do that. So that would be
Oh,
done. Yeah. So that would be done. 1 second. Let me try to show you that quickly. As that's a good question, and we can do that as well. Okay. Not as if it goes. So the initial tiles, right? You asked me a question how the tiles configuration is done. So the tiles configuration is done, or you can show or a hide. You can show and hide a tile basically coming to the SAV role of a particular user. Okay, basically, I'm an admin. I have an SAV role. Okay, we'll talk about SAV role a little later. SAV role is nothing but it tells you what accesses you need to have for becoming a role admin. Okay, so that is defined under a SAV role. Okay, same way you have a tab here under an SAV role which says that what are the options or tiles which are need to be visible for the end user. You see this? So I marked
okay.
certain, yeah. So I marked certain tiles which say that okay, I can create a new access request. Okay. So I have disabled it for now. So if I go back to my home screen, this first tile should be disabled or it should be hidden basically. See, I don't have my first tile. Okay. Let me re-enable it again. Okay. I'll refresh my screen. So I got my request access back again. Okay, so this is a place wherein you change the configurations, expose what is required and hide what is not required. I don't need a change password for now, so I have kind of disabled it. Okay, so you asked me for the way wherein we can onboard a user manually. So you need to enable this option called as create user request. Okay, this again exposes a form to you. You need to build that form again. Okay, you will build that form going to configurations. All right, so you enable this option here. You refresh your screen, you should get that particular tile wherein you can create a user. So when I click on this, it should actually throw me an error. Yeah, because I do not build that form for that particular user. You can do this, okay. Probably like you'll have the information in fresh test, or we can look at it a bit later, okay, or kind of take it as an extra topic and see that, okay. But you can still do that within Saviynt.
Sure, no problem.
All right. So what I was talking is you need to build a form for a user to come and request for a particular access. All right. So that can be done within Saviynt, or that has to be done for sure when you are expecting your user to request for an entitlement. Okay. So if you're just looking for creating an account within Saviynt, you do not to have this. Okay, you do not to build a form or expose certain things to the user. But if you want the end user to request for certain entitlements, you need to build a user form. Okay, so that the user would come and select something and submit it. Okay, so that's a second important thing which you need to look at it. All right. After this, uh, if you want to make the form little fancy, meaning if you want certain drop downs in the form, or if you want certain checkboxes in the form, we call it as dynamic attributes. Okay. Say for example, you want some checkboxes. Okay. You want some radio buttons, drop downs, etc. These can be kind of put into the form in the form on the form, and we call them as dynamic attributes. These are again defined at the endpoint level.
Can we add even the date picker or a calendar kind of thing?
Not everything is supported. I'll show you what is supported. Based upon that, you will have an idea, Sudhir. Not everything is supported. Yeah.
Because see, for example, when I create a user from, so I might be asking his date of birth to be keyed in. So is there a way can we uh,
See
have a
that you can
dynamic
do it at a,
attribute?
yeah. See that you can do it at a user form, but not at an endpoint level.
Okay.
So we can have certain more fancy elements on the form, which we call it as dynamic attributes. Okay, so these are defined at the endpoint level. Other important thing is that these can be used to filter the content on the form which you want to request. Say your form has 10,000 entitlements inside it, right? So you can create a dynamic attribute saying country. Okay, so you have 10,000 countries, and you don't want to kind of you don't want the end user to go and select or browse through all the 10,000 countries for his particular value which he needs to select. So what you will do, you will create a drop down saying that if somebody selects, say UK, that particular drop down should give him say 5 6 countries which are there in the UK. Okay, so that is something which is the prime use of having a dynamic attribute on the form. Okay, so that's another utility of having a dynamic attribute. And the other important thing is that you can pass the attribute or the value present in a dynamic attribute to the target as well. Okay, okay. So this is something which you can do as an extra thing. Say for example, your dynamic attribute is a field. Okay, field has a value called as say admin user, admin account. Okay, so when you're creating an account, there are two types of accounts: admin account and user account. For example, on Salesforce. So you're differentiating the creation of an account through a dynamic attribute, saying that this person, when he gets created on the target, he has to be an admin. If this person is requesting, um if this person selects end user through the form, pass that value in the target through a dynamic attribute and create it as an end user account on target. Okay, so that's another kind of usage of having a dynamic attribute on the form. Okay, so that's another kind of another feature which Saviynt kind of exposes on the forms, wherein you can filter the data as well as you can pass the data present in dynamic attributes to your target as well. Okay, so I just kind of quoted an example to you here. Okay, that's the second thing which you need to assess. Okay, looking at your current form and what you're going to build within Saviynt. Okay, so that's the second thing. Third thing, so you have done your form right now. Okay, third thing, what you have to analyze is the request flow. Okay, we nothing but workflow. Okay, so this is very important and it varies from application to application. Okay, so if your owner or the application owner says that okay, I need to have two levels of approvals. One, say for example, let me put it as like this, right? Two levels of approvals. Okay, first manager, second one over manager. Okay, so you can build this. It's a drag and drop thing in the tool or on the platform. It's pretty simple, unlike an Oracle product or a SailPoint product, right? You need not to write any piece of code there. It's very straightforward. So you just need to drag and drop uh, certain elements onto the workflow builder, wherein that kind of builds a flow, and you need to attach that particular workflow onto a security system. Okay, we'll see that example as well how we can do that. So this is very important and very crucial for any application, because you are defining where the request should go after it has been submitted. Okay, so the steps are important. First, you build a form, then you have dynamic attributes on the form if required. Then you build a workflow, attach that particular workflow to your security system. All right. After this, after this, uh, the your request is submitted, right? So after your request is submitted, the request goes for approvals. Okay, so it follows workflow defined above. Okay,
So
so you
Srikanth,
have
you're
your
saying get a form to get the user input with some dynamic attributes. Then I create a request flow
no, no,
which
no,
is
no, no, no,
also
no, no. One second, one second. I'm nowhere talking about a user form here. Okay, I'm talking about a form from where a user will request for certain entitlement through an endpoint. Okay, so the user form
okay.
which you have asked me is different. That is for onboarding a user. This is for submitting a request.
No, no, I understand. So you are creating a form to submit a specific request,
That's right.
and you have included a couple of dynamic attributes as part of that form to capture more
Correct.
details.
Correct.
And you get a request flow which will be attached to this specific request form, right?
Correct.
So will I mean there will be an option to actually basically attach this request flow with this specific form or something.
So you attach a workflow to an application, to a security system. You don't attach it to a form.
Okay, we attach it to an application. Okay.
Okay. Cool. So after this, you submit a request. The request goes for approvals. It follows the workflow which you have defined above. It basically goes here. Once your request is completed, okay, Saviynt SSM will generate tasks for you. Okay, these tasks can be create, add access. Let's consider like this. Okay, there are 14 types of tasks which Saviynt supports. Okay, we need not kind of bother about all the 14 types right now, but we just pick the important ones and understand, because access request system is more sort of creation of tasks itself finally. Okay, so what are the tasks which are important for us with respect to a request is create account, okay, add access, okay, modify modify account. Let's consider it like this. Modify account can be, yeah. Again, further, there will be add access or can be remove access as well. Okay. So what I can do, so we have covered create, add, modify, uh, disable account, remove account, enable account. What else? Yeah, there may be etc. Consider it like this. But what are important for us with respect to an access request system are create account, add access, modify account, okay, and then remove account. Okay,
Okay.
you can disable and enable account as well, but that's kind of not full-fledgedly implemented. It's a beta feature within Saviynt, but I believe they would roll it out very quickly as well. Okay, so these are important things, or these are important tasks which gets generated whenever you submit a request of a particular type. Okay, let's take an example further. Okay, so if my request, right, it's a it's a fresh request. Okay, so I'm kind of adding a, I'm trying to kind of request for an access for a user which doesn't even exist at all. Okay, so what happens is that Saviynt will kind of create a create account task. Then afterwards, if you are adding an entitlement on top of it, it will create a add access task as well for you. So there will be two activities which will be happening after your request is approved. One, you create an account, and as well as, sorry, Saviynt will create a create account task, and it will as well create a add access task, because you're first wanting to create an account and you are as well wanting to add an entitlement to that particular account. Okay, So that's what happens after your request is kind of completed. Tasks will be generated in Saviynt, and these tasks will be based upon the type of your request. Okay, so if your request is for removal of an account, okay, then remove account task will be created in Saviynt. Okay, we'll check those examples as well once we kind of take a use case. Okay, after this, what happens? Okay, after this, we will run WS retry, okay, which is nothing but provisioning job. Okay, this picks up the task and provisions and provisions or de-provisions on the target. Okay, for a connected app. For disconnected application, the task will still remain in the pending queue because a WS retry will not act upon a disconnected application because there's no connection at all for that. Okay. So that's the overall kind of flow for which you should be kind of concentrating under the section of access request system. So everything which I'm going to talk under the ARS module will be revolving around these activities only. Okay, whether it is requesting for myself or requesting for somebody else or even a bulk request, right? So everything will revolve around these basics. Okay,